When I found a single mom's diary on a bus, I never imagined it would change my life forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The moment I laid eyes on that worn, leather-bound diary sitting alone on the side, I felt this strange pull. It was as if the air around me thickened, swirling with secrets waiting to escape. Heart racing, I reached for it, fingers trembling. The bus rattled as it rolled through the unsparing city streets, but all I could focus on was the diary's soft imperfections. A small, frayed corner seemed to sob for attention. This wasn't just a book, it was something alive, pulsing with stories heavy as stone. A gut instinct told me that inside those pages lay the turmoil of a woman who fought battles no one saw, and I needed to know. With a deep breath, I flipped it open. The scent of old paper hit my nose, mixing with the metallic tang of the bus seat. The first few entries were filled with snippets of her daily life, tender moments with her child, worries about bills, and fleeting joys that echoed against the harshness of reality. Each word stormed through my senses. I felt her laughter, her worries, her very heartache engulfing me. I could almost see her, crouched on the floor of her cramped apartment, crayon smudges on the table, dog-eared pages fluttering around her like frantic butterflies seeking shelter. This woman, she was a solo warrior in an unforgiving world. I could hear her voice crack like delicate glass as she wrote about a midnight run to the emergency room, confessions of fear and hope woven through jagged lines. Tears burned in my eyes as I read, feeling her ache in the pit of my stomach, but then, just when I thought I understood her, the tone shifted dramatically. There it was, a sudden entry with frantic scrawl, words tumbling over each other in a chaotic blur. I can't keep this secret anymore. They'll find out, and it will destroy everything. My pulse quickened. Who was they? What could be so dreadful she would risk everything to keep hidden? I leaned closer, heart pounding with each borderline revelation. The weight of her uncertainty settled on my chest, heavy as lead, a dark cloud nested in the bright sunlight of the bus fading moments. A chilling sense of urgency dripped from the pages. If I knew this woman, if I really knew her, what would I sacrifice to protect her? Just as I flipped to the last few entries, the bus jostled violently, sending me lurching forward. The diary slipped from my grip, pages fluttering like startled birds, scattering secrets into the aisle. Suddenly, a shadow loomed over me. A stranger snatched it up, eyes gleaming with an unsettling curiosity. My breath hitched, tension tightening within me. "Looks like you've got something that belongs to me," the man said, a smirk playing on his lips. I felt my heart seize. How could he know? What did he want with this precious library of heartache? As he opened the diary, I gasped, knowing it would change everything. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." The bus screeched to a halt, the sudden jolt knocking me from my stupor. The stranger held the diary above his head, an amused glint in his eyes. "What do we have here? A little mother's diary? What dark secrets are contained within these pages?" His voice dripped with mockery, and I felt my throat constrict. I lunged forward, but the man stepped back, talons clutching the diary as if it were a trophy. "You really shouldn't be reading someone else's private life," he sneered, flipping through the pages with abandon. Each casual turn of the paper felt like breaking a fragile bond, and I wanted to scream, "Please," I gasped, desperation rendering me breathless. "You don't understand. I need it." "What for?" His eyes narrowed. "So you can save her? What if she doesn't want saving?" The smirk faded slightly, replaced by something resembling curiosity. I looked around the bus. A few passengers watched us with mild interest, the weight of my vulnerability crashing over me like waves. I felt raw, exposed, and unrelenting chills crept down my spine. How could I convey the gravity of my mission to this stranger? Without warning, he flicked to a page and began reading aloud. "I can't keep this secret anymore." His voice echoed, the words slicing through the quiet. I felt my cheeks flush, a mixture of anger and embarrassment swirling within me. He was violating her, and in turn, taking pieces of me along with it. "Stop!" I shouted, half rising from my seat, the pulse of my heart drowning out the rhythmic chug of the engine. "You can't. Why not? It's all out in the open now, right?" He continued, ignoring my pleas. "They'll find out, and it will destroy everything." Each word was like a tiny dagger, plunging deeper into the precarious threads of my newfound attachment to this woman's life. I took a deep breath, the suffocating sense of helplessness grating against the resolve hardening within me. "Her story is not yours to tell. She deserves more respect than this." The man paused, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. Was it possible he hadn't expected defiance? But then he laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that made my stomach turn. "You think you're the hero here? Not a chance. This woman is tangled in something much bigger than a mere diary." With that, he tossed the diary back towards me, its leather cover rough against my palm. "You want it? Fine. But you'd best understand what you're getting into." As I cradled the diary against my chest, the bus jerked into motion again, the occupants shifting their gaze back to their phones and conversations as if our exchange had been nothing but a break in the monotony of daily life. But my mind was reeling, paradoxical emotions battling within me like storm clouds colliding in the sky. I opened the diary again as the bus carried me further toward my destination, the urgency of the last few entries pressing on my conscience. What was so horrendous that she had risked everything to hide? Even more pressing was the question, what did the stranger know about her that I didn't? In the very next sentence, I was thrust into turbulent waters. "I feel them watching me. I sense their growing impatience. It won't be long before they come for her and for me." My heart raced as fear mingled with resolve. At that moment, a small voice broke through my thoughts, a little girl clutching a crumpled paper in her hand, her pigtails bouncing with every jostle of the bus. "Excuse me, miss," she chirped, eyes like wide windows full of a world I longed to protect. "That's my mommy's diary, isn't it?" Time slowed, the world around me coming to a standstill as I grasped the implications of her words. My ears rang with the truth. The very woman I had felt so deeply connected to was not only real but tied to this innocent child standing before me. "Your mom?" The words tumbled out as disbelief washed over me. "Yes. She writes in it every night before I go to bed," the little girl insisted, stepping closer. I opened my mouth to respond, to express my anguish and urgency, but a sudden noise outside shattered the momentous shout, a crash. The unmistakable thud of bodies colliding, an impact that sent both fear and instinct shooting through me. I could feel the air shift, a danger looming just beyond the walls of the bus, and in the chaos, my grip tightened on the diary. As the bus lurched to a stop, my eyes locked with the little girl's. In that heartbeat, desperate hope flickered between us. But outside, I sensed the storm had only just begun to break. It was in that breathless liminality, the space between hope and despair, that everything fell apart. The bus shook with the impact, the screech of brakes mingling with the cries of startled passengers. I felt the little girl's fingers wrap around mine, her grip small but unyielding, a lifeline in the tumult. In that instant, we were both terrified and connected, bound together by fate in a moment far graver than either of us could comprehend. As the bus doors burst open with a force that rattled its very core, a cascade of shouts erupted from outside, a mix of urgency and chaos. The driver's voice cracked over the roar, his panic palpable. "Stay calm, everyone. If you can, stay seated. We're assessing the situation." I clutched the diary tighter, my heart racing, the urgency of the words I had just read echoing in my mind. They were coming for her. Did that mean the girl was in danger too? My thoughts were frantically weaving patterns of dread, punctuated by the stark realization that this was no ordinary day on a city bus. "Miss?" The little girl's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. She was looking up at me, her big, frightened eyes full of unspoken questions. "Is mommy okay?" I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know, sweetheart. But we'll figure this out." A promise, though I wasn't sure I could keep it. The ruckus outside grew louder, and in the chaos of movement, I caught a fleeting glance of figures rushing toward the bus, dark silhouettes against the blinding midday sun, urgent and determined. My breath quickened as I strained to see what was happening, knowing all too well that the journal held secrets that had made someone want to act, to intervene, or worse, to silence her. Stay quick and low, sweetheart. Stay with me, I whispered urgently, pulling the girl slightly down into her seat. The last thing I wanted was for her to be exposed to whatever was going on outside. I didn't even fully understand it myself, but the urgency in the air was suffocating. Then, without warning, the figures were upon us, men in suits, their faces obscured, moving as though they owned the very air around them. One of them banged on the door, and the driver flinched at their hostility. I felt my heart pound against my ribcage, a primal instinct screaming at me to protect the girl, to keep her safe. My eyes darted around the bus. Other passengers were frozen, their confusion manifesting in gasps and murmurs. A woman clutched her child close, a man scowled, protective yet petrified. But we all understood as the figures advanced, we were caught in something larger than any single moment, far beyond a mundane bus ride. Open this door. One of the men yelled, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. We need that woman's diary. Now my heart sank. Were they after the woman, or did they want something from me? They're looking for her, I breathed, realization hitting me with an icy chill. Despite my impulses, I glanced at the little girl, who was now clutching her crumpled paper tighter, lost in a world of fear. What's your name? I asked, trying to ground us both in some semblance of sanity. Emma, she replied, her brows knitting together. Where's Mommy? She should be here. I don't know, I said, the truth clawing at my throat like a ravenous creature. But well, find her. I needed to be that pillar for her, even when my own heart was a quagmire of anxiety. A sudden crash made my stomach drop. The door slammed open, and the men surged inside, their eyes sweeping the cabin with ruthless efficiency. We're looking for a woman. She's in danger. Anyone seen her? The demand echoed against the walls of my resolve. Please, I pleaded, standing up instinctively, putting myself between them and Emma. You need to leave her alone. She's just a child. The lead man's gaze was cold, steely in a way that made my skin crawl. Step aside, or you'll regret it, he warned. Just then, a small spark ignited in my chest, a hint of rebellion. No. She's not involved in any of this, I said, my voice solid despite the trembling of my insides. I was no longer just an observer, the stakes had escalated beyond any expectations. Then you'll come with us. I'll give you 5 seconds to get her out of the way, the man growled. His patience was waning. In that moment, something broke free within me. I could not allow fear to dismantle my resolve. I launched my attack. This diary contained mysteries that could either save us or shatter my world entirely. I have her diary. I shouted, the words spilling from my lips before I could think them through. It's all here. You don't need her. All eyes turned toward me, tension coiling in the air. The world narrowed down to me and this shadow of a man. He hesitated, but only for a heartbeat, assessing whether to pursue me or snatch Emma instead. The weight of those moments stretched painfully, each second amplified in the throbbing silence before a decision sparked. I sensed a shift, a tiny glimmer of humanity, perhaps something deeper amid the chaos. Before I could discern what would happen next, the lead man's gaze flickered, a tinge of uncertainty betraying his steely exterior. Hand it over. And well, leave the girl. I looked at Emma, who was still clutching my hand, her trust shining through the veil of fear wrapped around us. Whatever was at stake in that diary, I knew I couldn't lose her. And yet, as I raised the diary, my heart surged with trepidation. What would I be giving away? Would I seal my own fate and that of a mother I had never met? The looming presence of the unknown wrapped around me like a thick shawl, leaving me acutely aware that this was just the beginning of something darker, a new chapter that was about to unfold. Are you ready to pay the price? The lead man spoke, his voice a low growl, but soon it would be drowned out by the impending storm. I held my breath, caught between salvation and surrender, as the shadows grew closer around me. The weight of the decision hung heavy in the air, thick with uncertainty. I felt every heartbeat pulse through my veins, a frantic rhythm urging me to make a choice. If I handed over the diary, would I betray not just Emma, but also the woman whose secrets were intertwined with my own fate? I stared into the lead man's eyes, seeking a glimpse of humanity, yet all I found was an unyielding determination. As the world around us folded into a vortex of noise, yelling passengers, honking horns, and the distant wail of sirens, a flicker of warmth broke through my indecision. Emma, with her small hand firmly wrapped around mine, offered me a silent affirmation. Her trust surged like a flickering flame amid the gathering darkness. "Don't be scared," I whispered to her, squeezing her hand in a futile effort to shield her from the chaos swarming around us. "We have to help Mommy," she murmured, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I glanced back at the men, their impatience palpable. They were predators closing in on their prey. Suddenly, a soft voice pierced through the clamor. One of the elderly passengers, a woman with bright blue eyes glimmering with unspoken wisdom, called out from the back of the bus. "What do you really intend to do with that diary?" The lead man turned sharply, his piercing gaze snapping toward the woman. She sat composed, despite the pandemonium surrounding her, a stark contrast to the fear that gripped the rest of us. "That's none of your business," he shot back, his voice a venomous hiss. "But it is," she retorted, standing her ground. "If you're here for the diary, then clearly you're involved in something much bigger than you've let on. Let the girl go. She shouldn't be part of this mess." His jaw clenched, and for just a moment, I saw doubt flicker in his stormy gaze. The bus seemed to hold its breath, every passenger waiting for a shift in the tide. "You think I care about the feedback from a bunch of nobodies?" The tone was harsh yet tinged with uncertainty. He turned back towards me, returning the focus of the confrontation to the diary clasped in my hands. "Please," I pleaded softly, the weight of multiple lives resting on my shoulders. "Let us go. Whatever you need, I can help you. But not her." The tension coiling in the air was unbearable as the man weighed his options, his eyes darting between Emma and the diary. The seconds stretched into eternity. And then, a flicker of momentous kindness from the elderly woman who finally drew herself into focus. Her wrinkled hands flicked open her purse, revealing a small, vibrant blue silk scarf. "Here, sweet girl," she said, her melodic voice threaded with warmth, "take this. It will bring you strength." Emma's brow furrowed, and she hesitated only for a heartbeat before accepting the scarf, as if understanding that it was less about the fabric and more about the sentiment. She wrapped it around her wrist, a small gesture yet bursting with meaning. It symbolized hope, an unspoken agreement that we weren't alone even in our darkest hours. "Enough of this. Hand it over." The lead man barked, snapping me back to the present. "Will," I stammered, caught between the warmth of possibility and the cold steel of the menacing reality. "But we need to promise something." He raised an eyebrow, incredulous at my audacity. "You think you're in a position to make demands," but then, an unexpected sound erupted from outside the blaring sirens, now closer. It sent a jolt through everyone on the bus. The lead man's face twisted with anger as he swiftly assessed the situation. "You have one last chance," and that's when the walls felt like they were closing in, blaring red lights reflected through the bus windows, a premonition of the chaos that was brewing. I was on a precipice, teetering between a decision to turn over my lifeline or cling desperately to the only anchor I had. Fueled by sheer instinct, I swallowed hard. "What if I told you that there's more here than you realize? There's something about the woman connected to that diary that could change everything." His brows knitted together in suspicion. "What do you know? More than you think." I forced my voice to steady. "This isn't just a journal. There are secrets in there, connections, things that could expose the very reason you're hunting her down. If you truly want to protect what you're after, you'll want to talk to me." Silence draped over the bus, a temporary lull before the inevitable storm. The men exchanged glances, their hardened armor cracking as curiosity peeked beneath their stern exteriors. Perhaps they too sensed the unraveling path ahead, perhaps they recognized the insignificance of their intentions if what I claimed was true, but as hope flickered brief and tentatively, a new noise slinked into the scene, heavy footsteps marching toward the bus. My heart sank. Reinforcements. The game was escalating, and we were trapped in a venomous web of unfolding chaos. "Get ready," the lead man sneered, his resolve returning. Because what's coming next won't spare anyone, especially not if you're lying. The atmosphere constricted painfully, and Emma's grip tightened further on my hand, seeking clarity as shadows began to seep into the weight of our plight. The revelation of my connection to the diary abruptly felt like a double-edged sword. Could I trust what unfolded next, or would those secrets doom us all? And just as I felt I was poised to find answers, the bus doors swung open yet again. A figure emerged, cloaked in anonymity, and as they stepped into the blinding light, my heart skipped. The world around me froze because from the depths of the unknown, a familiar face materialized with a look that could only spell either salvation or destruction. It was a face I had not seen in years, yet it ignited a fire of recognition within me. What had I unwittingly set in motion? As the revelation gripped me, the lines of fate blurred, and I felt everything I had built begin to crumble, disintegrating into the oncoming storm. The moment hung in the air like a specter, breathing life into the past that I had carefully compartmentalized. It was Claire, my sister, her once bright eyes now shadowed and framed by a determination I hadn't seen in years. As our gazes locked, the familiarity of our shared childhood jolted through me, a bittersweet current colliding with the harsh reality of our predicament. Claire? The name escaped my lips like a prayer, my voice barely audible above the rising tumult surrounding us. The sturdy walls of the bus resonated with disbelief, but the moment her name slipped free, I could see the wheels turning in the lead man's mind. Unfamiliar alliances were shifting like sand beneath us. That really you? Claire's voice cut through the chaos, tinged with both relief and wariness. There was no denying the bond we shared, but years had twisted that connection into something fragile, something fraught with memories of loss and sorrow. Get away from her. The lead man barked, breaking our moment. His eyes flicked between Claire and me, determination spiking once more. You don't have time for family reunions. Claire squared her shoulders, thrusting herself into the fray as if corporeal barriers didn't exist. I'm here to help him, she declared, not a hint of hesitation in her voice. I know about the diary. I know about everything. The crew of men shot each other disbelieving glances. Clearly, they had not anticipated this turn. It felt, however briefly, like a small tidal wave of unexpected hope washing over us, a reminder that kinship, even if strained, would rise to the surface in desperate times. Enough games, the lead man snarled, his facade beginning to fracture. What do you know? More than I should, she replied, stepping closer to me, her presence a warm glow amid the chilling uncertainty. But what's in that diary? What's tied to our familias bigger than the two of us? It connects to the woman you're trying to hunt down. I can tell you everything if you let him go. The credibility of her words echoed loudly through the bus, resonating with the passengers who were now tightening into a collective sphere of attention. The elderly lady with the blue eyes leaned forward, positioning herself between us and the danger. This act, so simple yet profound, reignited the embers of resistance within me. I felt less alone, fortified by the kindness of strangers and the unyielding spirit of family. Suddenly, a loud knock reverberated through the bus as uniformed officers appeared outside. The sight sent an electric jolt through the lead man, his bravado crumbling. We have to go now, he barked, glancing wildly around like a trapped animal. Claire's steely gaze remained fixed on him, unflinching. There's a way out, she offered, swaddled in a confidence I'd long forgotten about her. But you need to listen. The connections to that diary are deeper than secret words. It involves crime and fear that you can't possibly understand without hearing what I have to say. Enough. He shouted again, but the desperation in his voice betrayed him. Recklessness hung in the air. The sirens outside suddenly crescendoed, blaring a warning that echoed true. In that moment, time slowed, stretching out the seconds like galloping horses. I could feel Emma's breaths fluttering in synchronization with my own, her tiny heart racing against the backdrop of chaos. I reached down and pulled her into my arms, cradling her like an anchor tethered to our shared fate. As my chin rested atop her head, a sense of rising panic blended with a determination to protect everything we had. Come on. We need to act. I urged Claire, seeing the door frame the harbingers of change. She held my gaze, her eyes lit with the fire we had long thought extinguished between us. Before I could process the next move, the lead man surged forward, more animal than man. You'll regret this. His hand shot out, reaching for the diary. My grip instinctively tightened around it, the leather feeling like a pulse of life against my palm, drawing strength from the pages that had become both a burden and a lifeline. Then, another figure burst into view from the swirling confusion outside, a commanding presence radiating authority. It was a woman, her presence demanding silence as she swept into the bus like a gust of wind, a protective warrior cloaked in strength. Enough, she declared, her voice authoritative yet soothing. This ends now. Why are we still fighting? It was as if the bus itself collapsed under her radiant confidence, the tension in the air dissipating into what felt like a fragile equilibrium. The lead man blinked, momentarily thrown off balance by her startling emergence. Who do you think you are? He sneered, though his bravado was eroding under the weight of her resolve. I am the one here to collect what's owed, and from what I see, she gestured toward Claire and me, it appears you've strayed far from your original intent. You don't want to escalate this further, trust me. The staggering realization hit me then. The unfolding scenes were layered in complexity, new alliances were forming, and wretched truths were clawing their way to the surface. Claire's smirk held a sense of righteous vengeance. There was something about her demeanor that suggested she wasn't merely a pawn in this game. The diary not simply a vessel of discovery but the catalyst for unwinding secrets that begged to be heard. Voices past and present collided in that moment, echoing truths that were long buried. But as our surroundings shifted toward clarity, a fresh worry coiled itself around my heart. The fragility of this newfound encounter could shatter when truths emerged, truths capable of tearing us all apart. As the woman's gaze met mine, a silent vow passed between us. I wanted to believe it would lead to hope, yet a gnawing dread remained, heavy in the pit of my stomach. Just then, the decision felt less like a choice and more like a ticking time bomb, embracing potential while holding the threat of certain destruction, and as the siren screamed louder, I was jolted back into the frenetic whirlpool of uncertainty. Would clarity bring light or darkness? Would the revelation of the diary sever ties, or could it mend the frayed edges of my family's past? A shiver of anticipation coursed through me as I prepared myself for the flood of secrets ready to surface. The atmosphere grew thick with anticipation, tangled with a silence that hung like a heavy curtain over the bus, obscuring the chaos outside and the fears inside. The woman stood resolute, the embodiment of strength, her gaze locked on the lead man, a fortress against the tempest brewing within us all. I could feel Claire's quiet determination radiating like a shield at my side, a tangible energy that urged me to stand firm against the tide of uncertainty threatening to engulf us. Fine, the lead man spat, his bravado cracking under the weight of her presence. You think you can threaten me? You have no idea what you're dealing with. Oh, but I do, she replied, her tone a clever melange of defiance and enlightenment. The diary is the key to understanding the chain of events that led us all here. It's not just about your past but the future of everyone who's been caught in this web of lies. A soft gasp echoed through the bus, punctuating the tension. The elderly woman with blue eyes squeezed the hand of the young mother beside her, who clutched her own child tightly. We were all tied together in this moment, strangers drawn together by threads woven from fears, hopes, and desperate desires. My heart thudded wildly, caught in a tempest of emotion. Claire took a step forward, her voice steady, fueled by the gravity of knowing she had something to offer, a lifeline to pull us free from the swirling chaos. What's in the diary goes beyond our family ties to everyone, to the shadows that have haunted our community. Her eyes were aflame with conviction. Enough of this. I'm done playing nice. The lead man flared, fingers curling into fists, his fear morphing into rage. But the woman remained unmoved, like an unyielding mountain against a rising flood. That if you truly understood the power of knowledge, you'd realize that aggression won't protect you. Her calming gaze swept over those trembling in fear, bringing a momentary sense of solace to the growing unease. Suddenly, an effort at reassurance unfolded beside me. Emma, still nestled in my arms, pressed a tiny hand against my cheek, her innocent expression somehow breaking through the tangled emotions. Daddy, don't be scared. We're going to be okay, right? She whispered, her wide eyes brimming with trust. Her faith was a beacon in the storm, forcing me to swallow the lump in my throat. I caught Claire's gaze and saw a reflection of understanding, of hope and heartbreak, siblings still tethered by more than just blood. This was a moment that could change everything, one that could lead us all to light or darkness. The lead man stepped closer to me, breaking our moment, his presence a suffocating shadow that infected the atmosphere with dread. "Give me the diary," he ordered, placing an urgency behind his words. "You think you can control this situation? You all are just pawns in a game you don't even comprehend." Before I could answer, the woman interrupted, her voice ringing clear and powerful. "If you want it, you'll have to fight through the truth first. The diary is merely a reflection of what's broken in us all. It holds secrets that expose realities you'd rather keep buried." A shroud of disbelief washed over the lead man, but as he processed her words, his rage morphed into a fragile mask of fear. For a fleeting instant, I saw what lay beneath the possibility that he too was just a player in an intricate tapestry, his life woven into our own in unseen ways. But then Claire stepped forward, a daring glint in her eyes, amplifying the whirlwind of truths that encircled us. "This isn't just about survival anymore, it's about redemption. How many lives have been lost because of the darkness we've accepted? We can change this, we have to." The atmosphere shifted once more, the air crackling with the potential of rebellion. As I grasped the diary tightly to my chest, the leather cool against my skin, its pages were no longer a burden. It was the embodiment of voices long silenced and secrets yearning to breathe anew. Just then, I noticed something on the bottom of the diary's spinny, a faded inscription almost concealed beneath. The leather. I couldn't decipher it at first, too lost in the chaos, but recognition began to tug at my memory. The words felt familiar, unearthed from a long-forgotten part of my mind. "Wait!" I exclaimed, shaking off the mounting dread. "There's something written here, something important." I carefully opened the diary and flipped to the section where the inscription lay, my pulse quickening as I traced the letters with my fingertip. Claire's breath hitched beside me, but before I could read further, a piercing sound sliced through the air, a gunshot. Time froze as I turned to the source, instant terror flooding my chest. It was chaos, confusion erupting as shadows shifted outside the bus. Someone had taken action, and the stakes had escalated to a level we hadn't anticipated. In that heartbeat, the revelation of what lay within the diary felt more urgent than ever. What if it contained clues to not only our survival but the future of our entwined lives? But now, as the world outside closed in on us with terrifying swiftness, our safety felt like a flickering candle fighting against the storm, and as the lead man's eyes flared with fury and confusion, it became glaringly evident, the next move could shatter any tenuous alliances built on trust, urgency, and shared truths. I locked eyes with Claire once again, a shared vow reflected there as we collectively braced ourselves for the unraveling chaos that awaited us beyond the fragile barrier of the bus. And deep down, in that shared moment of impending uncertainty, I felt it, something monumental awaited us, but the real question remained: would it bring us together or tear us apart? The echoes of the gunshot lingered in the air as if time had splintered into shards of chaos, each fragment reflecting our raw fears. The once familiar walls of the bus transformed into a cage that held our collective breath captive. In the moments that followed, we did not speak. Instead, our eyes danced between each other, a silent negotiation of hope and despair as we tried to comprehend the worlds colliding outside. "Stay down." The lead man barked, his bravado faltering as he crouched, his previous power forgotten in the face of real danger. I could see the tension in his jaw, the confusion etched on his face, but there was something else brewing within him, something deeper than his immediate need to dominate. Holding Emma tighter, I felt her small body tremble against me, urging me to be the protector I had always aspired to be. "It's going to be okay," I murmured, my voice meant more for my own reassurance than for her. My gaze skimmed over the others. The elderly woman, who had once trembled with fear, now displayed a steely resolve, her blue eyes shining with a clarity that belied her years. Beside her, the young mother had taken a firm grip on her child, a silent promise shared between them as the weight of our choices pressed upon us all. "What do we do now?" Claire's whispered words broke through the silence, an anchor in the turbulent ocean of uncertainty. I stole a glance at the diary still gripped tightly in my hand, drawing strength from its pages. It felt heavier now, infused with the gravity of the moment. It was still ours to wield this weapon of truth, find shelter. The lead man finally managed to growl, anger mixing with fear as he peeked outside. "But we also need that diary. It might be the key to turning the tide." The desperation in his voice was palpable, and I felt an unexpected surge of empathy for him, a flicker of understanding that perhaps we were all just survivors in a world that had forgotten compassion. Claire turned to me urgently. "What did you see in the diary?" Is it safe to read now? The urgency in her voice carried the weight of our collective survival. I took a deep breath, biting back my own fear, and flipped through the pages, scrupulously searching for the inscription that had drawn me in moments before. They felt like countless whispers swirling around us, urging us toward a destiny unknown. There it was, a line I finally deciphered. Words carved decades ago, perhaps by a different hand but still echoing the struggles of the present. Only when we face the truth can we find solace. The woman beside Claire leaned closer, pushing back a strand of gray hair. That's it. That's why you were drawn to that book. Her voice cracked, warm yet trembling with unvoiced grief. It echoes the truths we feared to confront. Sometimes the past reveals not just who we were, but who we can become. Her words rang out, serving as a link between those of us inside the bus and the unseen battles raging outside. It wasn't just a diary, it was a legacy, a promise that our truths could heal if only we were brave enough to embrace them. Just then, the sound of shuffling boots outside made everyone freeze, a collective gasp rising in the silent void of the bus. Shadows shifted again against cracked glass, ominous and undefined, but real. The lead man entered a state of primal focus, his eyes darting like arrows. We need to work together or die trying that. In a moment that felt divinely orchestrated, an unexpected presence brushed against my leg. It was Emma, standing up to get a better look, her tiny hand reaching toward the door, innocence gleaming in her eyes. Let's go out and help, she exclaimed, a child's unwavering trust defying the very darkness threatening to consume us. The sweet, absurd simplicity of her words struck like an arrow through the thick tension, igniting something in my chest I had almost forgotten. Courage, Emma, no, I shouted, pulling her back, my heart pounding as I struggled against every instinct that told me to shield her from that darkness. But when I looked down into her earnest face, I saw a flicker of hope, a reminder that sometimes bravery comes in the smallest forms. The unexpected kindness of this small girl was infectious. It rippled through the bus like a warm wave, a reminder of the love that still thrived amidst our fears. The people around us began to exchange glances, the fire of unity igniting within the uncertainty as they felt Emma's spirit. Maybe she's right, Claire murmured, a hopeful gleam catching her gaze. We can't hide forever. We have to face it, together. As I looked out the fogged windows, my heart ached with uncertainty. We were on the edge of something tremendous, and while the lead man's eyes shimmered with uncertainty, I couldn't shake the sense that everything hinged on this singular moment. Would they stand with us, or would fear drive a wedge between our fates at the last moment? And then, as if to punctuate our quiet deliberation, an explosion erupted outside, the blinding light illuminating shadows of armed figures racing towards the bus. I swallowed hard, fear gripping me fiercely. It was then that I realized, buried among the pages, lay not only secrets but crucial revelations about survival that we could no longer ignore. Would we rise as one against whatever was coming, or would the truths hidden among the ink fray the fragile ties binding us together? I could feel the ground shift beneath me, the world tilting into chaos, and as I locked eyes with Claire, I understood we were standing at the precipice of destiny. Our moment of unity lay before us, but the storm of uncertainty was still gathering strength, promising to sweep us into the tempest we had tried so hard to resist. The moment was electric, suspended in a fragile silence that felt more like a tremor than an actual explosion. Each heartbeat echoed, counters as our collective breaths drew closer, not toward hope but dread. Outside, the shadows grew thicker, their shapes morphing into foreboding silhouettes that closed in around us like a vice, suffocating our brave declaration. Emma, get down, I hissed, clutching her close to my chest as the lead man shouted commands, his voice a distant roar. The bus, now more than a mere vessel of transportation, had morphed into a makeshift sanctuary, a fragile cocoon against the encroaching darkness. The elderly woman clutched her bag tightly to her chest, knuckles turning white as the tension seeped into every crevice of her being. Beside her, the young mother wrapped her arms protectively around her sleeping child, a visible shield against the chaos that spiraled outside. I looked toward Claire, who had risen to her feet, face tense yet determined, a beacon of resilience amidst the impending storm. Listen, she urged, her voice barely above a whisper yet carrying an urgency that sliced through the air. If we're going to survive this, we can't let fear decide for us. We have to make a plan. The lead man shot her a sharp frown but then turned back to the broken window, where shards of glass glimmered like cruel stars. Plan? Plan how? We can barely see outside, but Claire pressed on, her eyes ignited with purpose. We have the diary. If it contains anything about survival, we need to read it now before those people figure out we're here. As if summoned by the very mention of the diary, I felt the weight of its pages pressing against my chest. I could almost hear the whispers echoing from its depths, layers of woman's soul intricately entwined with pain, loss, and undying hope. Maybe it has something about confronting our fears, I said, my voice catching. Something about how to take back control. Without waiting for consensus, I flipped the pages open, scanning rapidly for something, anything that might guide us in dark times. My fingers brushed against a stain of dried ink, revealing a phrase that seemed to pulse with meaning. In facing the gun, we sometimes discover our own strength. A headache surged through me at the realization. Confronting our fears might mean exposing ourselves to danger, but it could also mean solidarity, a chance to discover who we truly were under duress. Okay, I said, finally finding some strength. We read it, but we also strategize. We need to know what we're dealing with. Just as I began to relay snippets from the writings, the bus jolted violently, the tires skidding against the gravel. A voice, commanding yet trembling, split through the air like thunder. This is your last chance. Come out with your hands up. Gripped by despair, the elderly woman let out a choked sob, her veil of bravery wearing thin. In that moment, understanding swept over me. We were not just battling the outside world, we were grappling with our own doubts, our inner demons. Who are they? The young mother whispered, clutching her child tighter, burying her face against the little one's head as if blocking the darkness from seeping in. I don't know, the lead man replied, his voice betraying a crack in his armor, but we need a distraction. We can't just sit here like sitting ducks. A plan began to form in the back of my mind, a dangerous and thrilling idea sparked by Emma's innocent bravery. What if we create a diversion? Draw them away from the bus? We might use the diary to tell a part of our story, something that could buy us time. A sudden gasp broke the tension as Claire turned, eyebrows drawing sharply together. The truth. You mean to tell our truth, our story through the diary? If they think we're showing weakness, they might come to check on us, and that gives us a chance. The lead man hesitated, the uncertainty weighing heavily between us. I could sense that he was straddling a tightrope. He could either embrace our fragility or let fear shackle him. We could try to journey out of the back, he finally said, glancing toward the bus doors. But it has to be now. And fast. Before I could process what was happening, I felt Emma's hand tighten around my fingers, a lifeline in the midst of chaos. Hadn't she shown me that strength could come from vulnerability? Perhaps the darkest shadows could be chased away by the light of our stories, the truths that lay heavy in the diary's pages. Emma, I breathed, dropping to her level. We need you to be brave again. Can you do that? She nodded, determination brightening her blue eyes. I'm not afraid, she replied resolutely, surprising me. Let's tell our story. In that moment, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were teetering on a precipice, the power of our truths against the looming threat outside. As we prepared, my heart raced with the knowing that everything hinged upon this singular action, this gamble with fate. And just as I was about to turn back to the pages of the diary, a figure stepped into view outside, tall, ominous, and cloaked in shadows. My breath caught in my throat, the revelation striking me like a lightning bolt. It was someone I recognized, someone from my life before everything spiraled into turmoil, a haunting embodiment of the past that I feared had been left behind. Elle? I whispered, the name escaping my lips, terror stark against the chain of words that had been building among us. As if sensing my gaze, the shadow shifted, revealing a face I'd never thought to see again in these circumstances. A reunion forged in chaos, one that threatened to unravel everything I had fought to build. And just like that, we were no longer just fighting for survival. We were facing the most profound emotional reckoning of our lives. The figure hesitated, almost as if caught in a net of disbelief, and a flood of memories surged through me. Elle had been a constant presence in my youth. She was the one who had understood my dreams, my fears before the world decided to break us apart. Now, her silhouette was indelibly intertwined with my past, and I felt a strange pull between recognition and fear. Is that really you? I murmured, fighting against the swell of emotions that threatened to drown me. The words barely made it past my lips, but the intensity of my longing for connection flooded back, making it difficult to focus on the crisis at hand. Alice? She replied, voice trembling, as if my name was a sudden light in her own darkness. Instead of stepping back, she took a hesitant step forward, drawn by some invisible thread. I thought you were Sho. A harsh whisper cut through the air. The lead man had turned sharply, and tension crackled like electricity among us. We can't waste time. If she's part of the group outside, we could be done for. But watching Elle fidget in the shadows ignited the slumbering embers of hope within me. Could she be here to rescue us? My thoughts raced as I gauged the situation. 100 questions collided in my mind. How had she found us? Did she know the risks? Stay back, I urged softly, addressing her as if speaking to a wild animal, wary and fragile. They're dangerous. We can't trust them, but her eyes, filled with a desperate flicker, said something different. No. I'm not with them. I swear it. I'm looking for my son. He was taken during the chaos. The weight of her revelation struck me, a crushing blow that sent my heart spiraling. Elle was here, in the depths of despair, searching for her child, caught in a whirlwind of loss just like the rest of us. Her vulnerability laid bare. I need your help, Alice, she continued, her voice breaking the surface of our collective anxiety like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Just outside the connection of our past, chaos throbbed, threatening to drown us all. I could feel Claire's impatience boiling beneath the surface, propelling me toward a decision. We can't let her jeopardize our safety. We need to focus on the plan, she mouthed fiercely, urgency knotting her shoulders as she turned to the others, likely reading their expressions as a mix of empathy and fear. My heart raced. The warmth of old friendships battled fiercely against the grotesque noise outside, intertwining history with present peril. Elle, I breathed, mouth dry, tell me about your son. Maybe we can help each other. The noise outside reverberated through the steel frame of the bus, muffling her response before it reached my ears. His name is Leo. He was with me, but when everything started happening, he got separated. I came here to find him. Heard someone say they might have seen a group of kids taken. Her words drifted into the suffocating atmosphere, laden with the burdens of a mother's heartache. Are you certain about this group? I asked, a fragile thread of support weaving its way between us. She nodded, tears pooling, and that tiny motion sent ripples through our fragile sanctuary. I would have risked anything to find him. He's just a little boy. At that moment, the elderly woman gripped my arm, eyes wide with fear. We can't trust anyone, she insisted quietly, her voice trembling but laced with defiance. What if she leads them right to us? We can't take that chance. A wave of confusion broke inside me as I felt myself caught between two worlds, the fear of possible betrayal and the flickering hope of reunification. Emma, now wide-eyed, shifted nervously by my side, her voice barely audible as she whispered, but what if she's telling the truth? What if we can help? The tension swelled like a tidal wave, ready to crash, when a sudden crack echoed through the air. A gunshot, sharp and definitive, sending shivers down my spine. The lead man's eyes shot towards the front of the bus, expression shifting from frustration to unrestrained panic. We have to move, now. He shouted, pushing the bus door open. Before I could process the unfolding chaos or my own conflicting emotions, Elle turned to me, desperation etched across her face. Please, Alice, if we don't work together, I may never find him. I need you. Her words hovered between us, as hollow and fragile as the promise of dawn on the horizon. In that breathless moment, the world condensed around us, and I had to choose, uphold the fragile tension between our lives and let fear dictate our choices, or embrace the darkness alongside the flicker of hope that Elle brought with her. The choice cracked through my heart. I took a step toward her. Okay, let's figure this out, I said, fear mingling with bravery, a desperate hope coiling in my chest like a spring. Just then, a figure appeared outside again, this time closer, overshadowing us in an aura of menace, ready to consume everything we had fought for. My throat dried in horror as clarity hit hard. This was far from over. Each heartbeat hammered against the drum of chaos, and the cracks in our sanctuary widened, leaving us teetering on the edge of destruction. What had I just signed us up for? The tension inside the bus reached a fever pitch as I strained to comprehend the consequences of my decision. In that moment, we were standing on a precipice, faces shadowed by uncertainty, the stakes higher than any of us could fully grasp. Elle was no longer just a ghost from my past, she was a mother desperately looking for her son. And I felt an echo of that same desperation surging up within me, pulling me closer to her plea. "Okay," I repeated, steadier this time, as I felt Emma's small hand clasp mine, anchoring me to the present. "We'll help each other. But we need a plan. We can't let anyone else get hurt." My voice felt like a fragile thread strung between two worlds, but I was determined to stand unwavering, the weight of the diary pressing against my side like a guardian of the truth. The lead man shot a look of incredulity from me to Elle, his expression hardening as if her presence had dimmed any glimmer of a hopeful resolution. "We don't have time for emotional reunions," he barked, panic blending with fury. But the mere presence of Elle ignited something within the group. A flicker of unity began to take form, intertwining our fears in a way that made it clear none of us was truly alone. "That I don't care if it's risky. We need to combine our strengths," Claire urged, voice taut with determination. "If we focus on Elle's mission, maybe the diary can guide us to the truth we need to expose. Maybe it holds the key to finding both her son and the woman we're seeking. If we act swiftly, we can steal back the power that's been thrust upon us." I glimpsed at Claire and felt a rekindled warmth. I had forgotten how courageous she could be. "That I can help," Elle insisted, her voice raw with emotion yet brimming with resolve. "Together, we know more than they do. And if we don't unite now, we'll never find our way out of this mess." I could hear the tremor in her words, each syllable laden with the weight of not just her past but the lives of countless others entangled in this web. As I met her gaze, I saw a mirror of my own relentless desire to protect what little light remained in this storm, the fragile innocence that made life worth fighting for. It was not just about survival anymore, it was about reclaiming agency over our futures. A moment later, a sudden movement outside jolted me back to the present. I peered through the grimy window. Dark shapes were converging, their urgency palpable as they approached. "They're getting closer," I whispered, dread coiling in my stomach. "We need to act now." The lead man hesitated but then moved swiftly, eyes narrowing. "Here's the plan. If we can create a diversion, we'll have a chance to escape out the back. I'll go first. You follow closely behind. Get ready." He nodded toward the back door, the tension in the air thick as a storm cloud ready to break. "That we can use the diary as a weapon of truth," I suggested, instinctively glancing at the leather-bound journal. "But not just as a distraction, let's use it to share our story with them. If we can make them see our truths, we might turn the tide." The others nodded, gathering resolve as I flipped through the diary's pages. My hands trembled slightly. "This," I said, gesturing to the hard-earned wisdom chronicled in its sheets, "is testimony of our struggles, our losses, and the urgency that ties us together. Tonight, all of us become storytellers. We won't be victims cowering in fear. We'll reclaim our narratives." I could feel my breath quickening with conviction, adrenaline racing through my veins. "That we need to do this," I continued, heart racing, "before they take control of our lives again. Each of us has a role to play, and we must not forget that strength comes from vulnerability." Just as I began skimming those words, the bus lurched violently, the sound of footsteps ringing ominously outside. The lead man's expression shifted from determination to outright panic as he nudged the door open ajar, peering out into the darkness. "Ready?" he whispered urgently, glancing back. "On the count of 3. We nodded almost instinctively, despite the heaviness lying between us. 1, 2, 3, I took a deep breath, feeling Emma squeeze my hand tighter, steadying the chaotic rhythm in my chest. Together, we sprang into action. We burst out of the bus like wildflowers blooming in the sun, hoping our unexpected presence would disrupt the dark waves approaching. Outside, a floodlit chaos raged, but we became more than mere shadows. We became a symphony of voices, each one flowing into the next, weaving our collective truths into a tapestry that wouldn't drown in the din. "Listen!" I shouted, lifting the diary above my head, its weight suddenly feeling like the world's compelling secrets ready to surge forth. "You think you can silence us? You think you can erase the truth? Stand down, and we'll tell you why we fight." The world around me faded momentarily like an impressionist painting, the figures before us halting, their confusion a mere echo in the vastness of our gathering strength. I could feel Claire's gaze on me, her fierce nod suggesting a silent agreement, a kinship linked by purpose. Elle stepped forward, her eyes ablaze with determination. We are not alone. We will not be kept in the shadows. The truth within these pages speaks for our lives. A life that we vow to protect. She held out her hand, and I did the same, the diary binding our destinies together, charged with untold potential. Together, Claire added, we will not be silenced. Every story we share a step toward breaking the chains that bind us. In that moment, the air hung heavy with the rhythm of truth being spoken. We were no longer a cage of fears but a home of souls rising as one under the weight of impending storm. The darkness outside faced a torrent of light, connection formed from shared vulnerability and the strength that emerged when we dared speak our truths, and from that infinite moment, whispers transformed into a chorus, voices forging onward, bearing our hearts, softening the menacing figures before us. As the chaos shifted, silhouettes began to falter, and I recognized that the shared weight we bore, fraught with fears and stories that tangled us all, was the very source of our power. One truth that echoed through my mind: they could try to rend us apart, but they could never erase the bonds we forged, the humanity that united all of us beneath that swirling tempest. In one last moment, the tide turning dramatically, I held the diary aloft while raising my voice above the fray. Tears streamed down as I declared, we are not mere survivors, we are living testaments to every trial faced and every shadow endured. It was then I realized the weight of our journeys bore a dual purpose: to preserve our pasts and illuminate the paths toward our collective futures. Nothing, not guns, rage, or chaos, could extinguish that kind of light. As the light of our truths crashed against the storm clouds outside, I prayed that the light I had ignited would carry us beyond this moment, and years down the line, when we had overcome the challenges ahead, we would remember, all it took was courage and a story to change our fates, and in that remembrance, we would find our fullness amidst life's beautiful chaos. And as the wave of truth washed over us, I knew at that instant that we were not just stories poised to unite, we were sparks of hope, determining our own destinies, and would increasingly embrace our truths, rising together into the vast unknown.